Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are going to learn about cursors in SQL Server. A cursor helps us go through each row of a table one by one and do something with it, like checking values or updating data. We will first understand what a cursor is, why we need it, and then look at a real life example. I will also show you the step-by-step process of how a cursor works and explain the different types of cursors in a very easy way. This video is perfect for the beginners, so don't worry if you are new to SQL Server. Let's get started. And if you like the video, please like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. Let's try to define cursor. A cursor in SQL Server is a database object and which is used to manipulate data row by row from a result set. It acts like a pointer that moves through each row in the query result one by one, and it allows you to perform operations on each individual row. So what is special about it? What is something that you cannot do with the regular SQL statement? So let's say if you are in requirement wherein you want to do processing and some business logic execution on each row based on certain conditions, for that you really need some mechanism wherein you will iterate through each row of the table, you will check the condition and you will do some activity. This looks very difficult using a simple SQL statements. So for that, we can use cursors over there. Let's try to understand a scenario. What is the scenario? The scenario is there is a company which tries to allocate some salary hike to its employees one by one. And the salary hike is based on certain condition. So the employee table is there, which contains employee data as well as their base salary. But now company wants to provide some salary hikes to its employees. And what are the criteria? The criteria is it's a rating wise. So every employee in the company receives some ratings. So rating is a mechanism that is evolved in the company wherein it is based on performance. So let's say if you performed exceptionally well, so you will get rating 1. If you have little lower than that exception, then you will get rating 2. Likewise, you'll get rating 3 and rating 4. There is no rating 5 as such, let's say, for this company. So this company tries to go and give a hike like if somebody has got rating 1, then 15%, rating 2, then 9%, rating 3, then 6%, and rating 4, then there is no hike. This is not only the condition, the second condition also applies here, that the company has a mandatory course. So nowadays, company announces the mandatory course for its all employees. So every employee must complete that mandatory course in every performance cycle. And if somebody has not completed that mandatory course, company may not provide salary hikes based on that. So the mandatory course is tied to the salary hikes. So what is the second condition in this company? The second condition is if any employee has not completed the mandatory course, so the hike will be just half of what is announced. So if he has not completed the mandatory course, but he has got rating 1 for his other performance, so his salary will not be increased by 15%, but it will be 7.5%, which is half of 15%. Make sense? So this is the condition, and this is what we wanted to achieve. So it looks a little difficult here if we are to write a simple select statement and do lots of business logic implementation out there. So the best idea out here is that we can achieve this easily using cursor. We will see this thing in action in a moment. So we have seen that there are a couple of reasons why we need cursor. Number one is when we need to perform a row by row processing. So we have seen in our previous example that we have to process each row. So we have to read each row and then we have to study few things, and then you need to do lots of computation for each row, right? So if we have a complex logic which cannot be done with simple SQL statement, then we need to use cursor. So I understand that the previous example which we have seen has some complex logic, and that appears that we need to use cursor for that. What is the third reason? If you need to maintain a states between the rows, let's say you wanted to get some information of previous row and wanted to implement something to the next row. Let's say if there are if has 5 rows and then you rate the first row, but the second row calculation which you want to do is depending upon the value of first row. So in that way, we can send the values from one row to another if we are using cursor. So these could be the three basic reasons why we need cursors. Let's go and try to see the workflow of cursor. The workflow of cursor is, if you want to write a cursor, what are the mandatory steps that we need to follow? So you have to declare the cursor. That is one. You have to open the cursor. Once you have declared, then you open the cursors and execute the query. Make sense? Third, you have to fetch rows at one time, and then you have to process each row. And then finally, you have to close the cursor, and eventually you have to deallocate the cursor. So deallocate cursor means it's making the you have to free the memory, right? So these are 6 steps that come under the cursor workflow. Let's go and see these all things in action in SQL Server Management Studio. So we are back in SQL Server Management Studio, and you can see here we have written some SQL scripts. So we usually write SQL script beforehand just to save our time, so that we will not spend a lot of time just by typing the stuffs. So I have to prepare these things before recording this video. So this has been written. What it is going to do is it's going to create a table called TBL employees. This has got a couple of fields. The first field is employee ID of primary key or integer type. Second is employee name of worker 100 type, 100 size. Email is of worker and it is unique and not null. Salary has got a decimal 10,2, and the check is that salary should be always greater than 0. It should not be 0. And then we have got rating. Rating is a small int. It will contain the value like 1, 2, 3, 4. We could have given a constant here also, but just to make it quick, I have just not written this. And then we have a field called training completed. Training completed field will contain either 0 or 1. If it contains 0, that means the mandatory training has not been completed. If it is 1, then the mandatory training has been completed. And the last, we have current year hike that will be based on the condition the current year hike field will be populated. Make sense? So let's go and create this table. I am selecting this whole create script and hitting this execute button. The table has got created. See, this is command completed successfully. Now let's go to insert couple of records to this table. So I'm going to insert couple of records to this. So there are 5 records. Let's go and select this insert statement, execute, and the records have been inserted. So we can anyway check this report, select all from TBL employees, and you see these all records out here. So you have got all those records, and you see that employee ID field has been arranged in a sequence. And why it has been done in such a way? Because the employee ID field is of primary key, and that's why the cluster index is there, and it is physical organization of the field. So this has done that. You see that the current year hike is null right this point of time, because this will be calculated based on the rating and training completed. Make sense? Let's go and see further how to create the cursor. So we know from the previous slide that if we want to go to create cursor, we have to do first thing is that declaring of cursor. So this is where we are declaring the cursor. Before this, we have created couple of variables here. This is how we create variables in SQL Server. We are going to cover it in detail in future, but time to time I introduce with you the way where we can create the variables and we can declare the variables. So this is the way declare variable name. So at the rate sign that we need to start with, and then variable type. And this way we have created employee ID, salary, training completed, and rating. So just keep in your mind here that a couple of variables have been created. Now this is the way that we have declared the cursor. Declare and cursor name cursor. So cursor is a keyword, declare is a keyword, and this is a cursor name. My cursor name here is employee and cell cursor. And then you have to write for, and then you have to write the select statement. So what is the select statement? We are going to create a cursor for the select statement. So this select statement will retrieve some data. So for this data, and we are going to create a cursor for this data. So actually we will be doing some processing on this data. So you see here, I have not taken, employee name under consideration because we really don't need employee name for calculation of these things, right? So we have only captured only those fields which are really required. Make sense? You can write any number of fields here. And then the second step is open the cursor. Once you have declared the cursor, open it. Fetch next is the command which basically fetches the next record. So by default, it is 0th record, but you are telling fetch next, so it will try to fetch the first record, and it will store into this variable, right? So it will actually read the first record, and it will keep this employee ID 1 to this variable, 45,000 to the salary variable, training completed is 1, and rating is 2. So these values will be stored there, right? So this is the way that we can come to the first record and the first value here. Fetch status is a global variable here which is used along with cursor, which determines that all loop will keep on running until the fetch status becomes 0. Make sense? And fetch status will become 0 once we will be exhausting the whole records that we have selected. So we have 5 records here. Once we are done with all 5, this will become 0, and then loop will discontinue. For those which is this loop is new, this is the way how we can write while loop in SQL Server. While, condition, begin, and end. So this is the begin statement, and this is the end statement. So everything of the loop has to be written within these begin and end statements. Make sense? So I understand that you are getting it here. Now, in this loop, what we are going to do is we are going to check a condition. The condition is if training completed is 1, that means the employee has completed the training successfully. If it is calculated, then let's check if rating is 1, then high calculated will be 15%. If rating is 2, then high calculated will be 9%. If rating is 3, then high calculated will be 6%. But if rating is 4, then the high calculated will be 0. And this is the condition when the employee when the training completed is 1. That means the training has been completed. Else, this is the else of this if. Else, in this case, the training has not been completed. Then the high calculated will be divided by 2. So instead of 15, it will be 7.5. Instead of 9, it will be 4.5. Instead of 6, it will be 3. And 0 will be 0. Make sense? So this is the body of the calculations, the business logic that we have written. Make sense? If, else. And here, I am printing the value. So what I'm going to do is I'm printing the employee ID here, ratings here, salary here, and hike amount is here. And then this is an important part. In order to move to the next row, next record, because there are 7 records. So the first record you are done, then you have to move to the second record. All you require is to do this. Is that you have to tell next, read next, or fetch next. So you have to tell is FETCH, fetch next. And it will fetch the next record. And it will keep on fetching until it gets the fetch status equals 0. Make sense? Once we are done with everything in the cursor's body, we are going to close this cursor and deallocate the cursor. Let's go and select this whole and try to execute and see if we are able to achieve this cursor thing. I'm hitting the button and you see that we are done. Employee ID 1, rating is 2, and 45,000 rating 2. That means if the guy has got rating 2 and he is completed, if he has completed or not, that we have to see. Then if it is 2, then 9% will be calculated. Make sense? And this way, everything gets calculated here. In real-time examples, when we do lots of business logic and write lots of business logic, this we find very useful, and we are using it. Although there are alternate ways to do this, but cursors are useful. Make sense? Let's go and see the different types of cursors available in SQL Server. So there are certain bases on which we will classify that cursor type based on declaration, the way we can declare. So once the way we declare, there are two types of cursors, implicit cursors and explicit cursors. So the one which you have recently just seen a couple of moments back, we wrote it explicitly, and that's why it is called explicit cursor. Then what is implicit? SQL Server also automatically creates cursors to do lots of operations. So it is implicit. It is the SQL Server business who will create the cursor for its different purposes. But when we create, then it is explicit. Make sense? The second base of classification of cursor is based on scrollability or based on movement. So you remember you are once iterating through records, you are going from top to bottom, right? But there can be some possibility wherein you are in the fourth record and you wanted to go back to the third record, right? So that is also possible. So based on this is called scrollability or movement. The way you move among the records of the table, rows of the tables. How are you jumping? How are you moving from one record to another record? Make sense? So based on this scrollability or movement, there are two types, forward only and scroll. Forward only tells that once you create a cursor of type forward only, then you can only move forward. I mean, if you are on record number 1, then you can only go to 2, 3, 4, 5. If you want any time to go from record number 4th to 3, it is not possible. But when you create of this cursor of a scroll type, then you can do that kind of movement. We have something called first, we have something called last, next, prior, absolute, relative, and lots of things. Make sense? So based on scrollability and movement, there are two types of cursors that we can create, forward only and scroll. Next is best of sensitivity of data. Best of sensitivity of data means if you are working on cursor, then you have already taken the snapshot of the table. So let's say your table has got 5 records, which we have seen sometimes back. So once you create the cursor, then it will take the snapshot of all 5 records and it will start processing. During that time, if any changes take place on the source data, then what will happen? This is a bigger question. So if your cursor is of a static type and you have just started processing the record, even if there is a change in the source record, there will be nothing, no reflection, no changes will take in the consideration. So you really need a cursor wherein you are not worrying on the changed data, then you can create a static cursor. They're faster, but this is the consequences of creating a static cursor. If you are creating dynamic cursor, then what happens? If you are working, let's say 5 records there, and you are processing that 5 record at the same time, if somebody has inserted one more record, so now the source table has got 6 records. So it will process 6 records, not only the 5 records. And it takes care of whatever changes being done during its processing also. Make sense? And if it is about key set, it's combining the feature of a static and dynamic both. And what happens in key set is it doesn't allow insert, but it allows the update. So whenever any update happens, let's say you had some address change of any employee. So that address change you did in the table, those address changes will be taken care of in the cursor processing also, even if cursor is on the go. But if any insertion takes place, then if you are creating a cursor called keyset driven, then it will not take care of. Make sense? Next is based on a scope. So there are cursors called local and global. So you can create a cursor local. So the local cursors will be the cursors available to that code block only or that batch only. So in SQL Server, when you write a go statement and then you write another set of statements, so whatever within one go, one chunk is called a batch. So if you have created a local, that will be available to that batch. But if you have created cursor type of global, it will be available to another batches as well, provided you have not deallocated it. Make sense? And the last is based on updatability. So we have read-only cursor and we have updatable cursor. If you will read-only cursor, then it prevents updates on rows fetched by the cursor. So you cannot do any kind of updates. But if you have updatable cursor, allows updates on the rows fetched by cursor, provided a query satisfies the update statement. So based on all the methods, we have learned what are different types of cursors available in SQL Server. We will go and see all the cursor types in action in SQL Server Management Studio. Let's go and see things in action. So I am back in SQL Server Management Studio, and here we will see that we are going to create a cursor and understand forward only and a scroll. So what I'm trying to do is that I'm creating a cursor, I'm declaring a couple of variables, EMP ID, EMP name, and salary. And then I'm creating a cursor called EMP cursor, but type I am telling is forward only. So this is the way you can create a forward only cursor. And then for select all these steps. Make sense? I'm opening the cursor and then I'm fetching next. So what will we do? Once we fetch next, then you are bringing to the first record. So here first record will be displayed. Then you are fetching another next, then it will go to the second record. The second record will be displayed. But here I want to go prior. Prior means I want to go back. So once I want to go back, since it is a cursor of forward only type, it will not be able to do the task for us. Let's go and see. Select it and try to do that. You see, it did something like it displays first one, that is Sumit Kumar is the first record. And then we told fetch next, then it displayed John Tabby. And then we tell fetch prior. Since prior cannot execute, because then it tells what? Fetch type prior cannot be used with forward only cursors. So forward only cursors tells that, hey, I can only move forward. If you ask me to go back, I can't go back. So let's go and create it as a scroll type. So I'm commenting out as forward only, and now it is of a scroll type. Let's go and do this. This time you should be able to see. So you saw that Sumit Kumar is the first record. Then you tell move next. Then second record of John Tabby displayed. Then you said go prior. Then again it came to Sumit Kumar and it showed you the first record. Make sense? So this is how we can create cursor forward only and a scroll type. In a scroll type, you can go before, after, first, last, but in forward only, you can only go next. Let's go and try to see the static cursor versus dynamic cursors. So we have learned that you can create static cursor, and once you create a static cursor, what it does is it only considers the record for which it has taken the snapshot. If there are 5 records, it will only be working on that. In the behind, if the table has got 6 records during its processing, it will not process that. Make sense? So here I'm creating another variable. emp ID and emp name, just to make it very simple. And then I'm going to create a static cursor here. Make sense? So static cursor named emp test cursor. I'm opening this and I'm fetching the next, and then I'm running a loop while status becomes 0, and then printing each value. I'm waiting for some time here. This is the way you can delay your execution for some time. I'm delaying it for some reason, because what I'll do during this execution, I will try to insert a record into the table and try to see if my static cursor is considering that record or not. So here is the place where I have written the insert statement. So what is the strategy? During this processing of cursor, we will try to insert a record here and try to see if it is a static cursor, is it going to consider that newly inserted record or not? Make sense? Let's go and do that. So I'm going to select this whole thing and executing the cursor. My cursor is being executed at the same time. Let me go and execute this. So I have to change the database. Let's go. So this has inserted one record. This is new employee record. But if you come here and it is still executing, it will be executed for 30 seconds, it seems, because of 25 seconds, because each 5 seconds delay I have told. So now you see that this has, even if before this execution, I had inserted this new employee record, but this has not considered that particular record new employee, which is having employee ID 4. So this signifies that if you have created a static cursor, it does not care if any changes taking place during the cursor execution to the main table data. At some point in time, this is good, and this is bad as well, depending upon your requirement. If you are really not caring about the data and you don't you want to compromise with this tail data, don't want fresh data, then select a statement, because then they are faster. Now let's go and try to see creating the dynamic cursor. For that, I will recreate the table again. So I am selecting this statement, and this will create the table. Let's not get confused. This is just creating a fresh table there so that we will perform some activities. Now there are 5 records here. So I'm coming here and then trying to create a dynamic cursor now. So let's comment it out and let's uncomment it. So what is the attribute of dynamic cursor? The dynamic cursor will take changes under consideration also. So we will try to process this cursor, and at the same time, we will try to execute this. And then we will see whether this cursor is taking new data inserted or not. We have seen that static did not consider. So let's go and select this, selected, and then try to execute this. Now let's check whether it is taking all records and the new records as well or not, because this time we have created dynamic cursor, and as per the property of dynamic cursor, it should take the changes as well during its processing. So processing is being done the same time we inserted the record, and you would be able to see these records in 3 seconds. You see that it has taken the new employee record as well. So this justifies that, this proves that when you create a dynamic type of cursor or keyset type of cursor, if you create dynamic cursor and if any insertion, updation, deletion takes place behind the scene to the table, it will consider that the changes will affect. But in case of keyset, only the updates will take place, but it will not consider any inserts. Make sense? And the next is the local versus global. So we are, it's pretty simple that we have created this cursor, and then somewhere below somewhere we can execute the same cursor again, because then we have not deallocated it. And once it is local, then you cannot use it in another block or in another batch. So this is how we can differentiate local and global type of cursors. I hope that the concept of cursors, which I have explained, is pretty clear to you. Share your comments and write me how you think about the concept. If you have any query and question, please write me in the comments or over my email, and I will be happy to answer them. See you in the next one. Bye bye.